Hello again and welcome to part B of lesson 4. So now what we're going to do is jump into, now that you sort of have the philosophical foundation that we did in part A around, phonics, balanced literacy, and whole language. Now we're going to jump into some more general reading strategies that you can use sort of in any situation that you're teaching reading. And this is called the Model Shared Guided and Independent Reading. We're also going to look at the same sort of structure when we get into writing. But just before we jump in, I think it is imperative at this point, as we're starting to talk about some strategies and as you are starting to plan your lessons, is that we start to kind of look at some of these essentials in a bit more of a particular manner. So basically we have phonics and phonemic awareness, vocab, fluency, and comprehension. So we're going to, I'm just going to do a quick sort of give you some examples and some focused strategies to possibly teach these fundamentals that you can really steal or morph or change or adapt for your lesson plan. So when you're planning your lesson plan for assignment 3, feel free to use some of these tactics. So when we're looking at phonics and phonemic awareness, you can use some of the ideas from special/secret stories. So if you want to address them as special stories, you can. So think about some of those things that you could adapt from that. You could do some fun drawings of letters. So you could see there that when you're drawing B, you could draw it as a nose or the body of a squirrel or the lips of a person, and just to kind of reinforce the idea that reading and ultimately writing is fun. You could do some singing. Denise Gagne has a book actually in the Medicine College Library. It's called Alphabet Action Songs. And you could take that out and you could do some action songs. So one of them, I'm going to sing it for you, it's about, you have to tell me which letter it's about. It says, "Rockin' Robin likes to rock and roll. Rockin' Robin likes to rock and roll. Rockin' Robin likes to rock and roll. He really likes to rock and roll." Okay, so hopefully you said R, right? So you could do some, you could do singing. You could grab some of the resources out of Denise's particular resource. You can play something like Duck, Duck, Goose with the number of phonemes. So as a group, you're sitting in a group and you say, okay, let's go through the phonemes of cat. K, a, t. And then the child goes, walks around the circle, plays Duck, Duck, Goose, Duck, Duck, Goose, K, a, and then they run. So again, trying to think of some fun ways to be teaching phonics, and then they can jump and say syllables of a word. So if you have thunderstorm, thunderstorm, and then they jump, and it wears them down a little bit. Plus, they get the idea of your phonics focus. And you could read poetry with lots of rhyming words. Kids love poetry, and rhyming words are such a great way to be teaching phonemic awareness. So find some kids' poetry and read that out with lots of rhyming words in there. So again, just a few ideas to get you spinning. So as you're actually planning your assignment and you're going, I don't know how to teach this, here's some ideas that you can again jump off of. Use them as basis. Vocabulary, again, I would say it depends again on your philosophical ideology. You could work on some sight words if you think that memorizing those sight words is important. There's also two of my favorite spots to go and look for some fun vocab pedagogy is on Spark Creativity with Betsy Potash. She has some kind of cool ways to teach vocab that are a little bit out of the ordinary. And then Balanced Literacy also has some in there. So you could also do something like create a weird word wall where they write down the weirdest words that they can, and then that that maybe goes up on a wall, and then you find out what those words mean. You can sort of seize unexpected events. So if a child comes in and they unfortunately maybe have a cast on their arm, then you start talking, bring in vocab words like cast and fracture and plaster and elevation, and those kind of things that are very situated with that particular situation. You could also, when you're talking about teaching vocab, think about Goldilocks words that they need to know. What are words that they absolutely need to know to understand a story or to understand maybe an upcoming science lesson? You could pull vocab from there. And again, teach those specific words that are coming up. So if you in your lesson are going to read a book and you think that you might want to pull, you've seen teachers do this in the examples, pull some of those words out beforehand so that when they come to those maybe more difficult words in the book, they actually know what they mean. So again, just some ideas, just throwing them out there for you. I have a couple quotes that I want to read you about vocab. Words are the instruments that authors and poets use to enchant us, delight us, sadden us, amaze us. That's Isabel Beck, Margaret McGowan, and Linda Kukin. And a robust approach to vocabulary involves directly explaining the meanings of words, along with thought-provoking, playful, and interactive follow-up, also by the same authors. Okay, so again, just some ideas around vocab. Yeah. Try to read it. You probably can, because you can figure out where the words are starting and stopping. But what happens to comprehension when fluency is low? What happens when this is what a child sees all the time? They spend so much time just trying to say the words that they forget what they're reading. So how can you work on fluency in your lessons? You can model fluent reading. So when you are reading a book, read it with lots of expression and emphasis, and change up the pace of your reading so that the students really get a good exemplar of fluent reading. Have students, and I want you to think about this when you're thinking about teaching teaching fluency, is have students read and reread and reread texts over and over again. So these rereadings should be fun, but in the rereading is that repetition that kids need to understand the words, the vocab, as well as comprehend. Okay, so think about that again when you are planning your lesson. And finally, some comprehension ideas here. So comprehension, I'm going to read from the National Reading Panel. Comprehension strategies are not ends in themselves. They are means of helping your students understand what they are reading. Okay, so ways to support comprehension at any level. So ask open-ended questions. Don't ask them what color is the red wagon, because they'll say red and you'll have no idea if they actually comprehend what's going on. So ask lots of open-ended questions. Think about doing like an Oprah Winfrey kind of interview, where you interview either the child as themselves or the author of a book or a character of their book. So then you really will get a sense of, do they understand or have they comprehended what's going on? Do some directed reading where you prompt. So what do you think is going on here? What does the cover of the book tell us? So that you get a sense of if they're actually understanding what's going on. KWL. So what do you know? What do you want to know? What did you actually learn at the end of the time together? So before reading expository texts, they brainstorm about what they know about the topic. They decide what they want to learn, and then after reading it, they put down what they learned. So again, it's a good indicator of the comprehension level. Questioning the author is the students look and they analyze the text as if they were the author revising the text. So what is the author trying to say? Why does the author explain it in this particular way? And then it gets the student kind of into the mind frame of thinking from an author's point of view, but really questioning, why did the author use this word here instead of this word? Why did the author have the character do this instead of this? So again, that's a really great way to get them to understand comprehension. Reciprocal teaching is as a student is reading, he or she is dialoguing with the educator in order to construct meaning. So again, this comes through summarizing, they summarize, you ask questions, you clarify confusing parts, you predict what is coming up in the text, and the teacher then can scaffold, okay, I need to keep pushing this child, or I need to really get this concept under control. Do some graphic organizers. These are some visual representations. So that'll, again, if you get them to do a brain web or a chart or a Venn diagram, that'll really show you if they're actually comprehending what you're hoping they're comprehending. A story map, again, so what is the beginning of the story? What is the crisis? What is the rising action? What's the conflict? What's the resolution? Those kind of things. So that might help you to see if the child is actually comprehending the story. Beach ball, actually have like a beach ball and write on it in permanent ink, like plot, character, high point of the story, conflict, resolution, and then you pass it around the room, and whatever one is facing them, then they have to talk about it. It's just kind of a fun way too. So if they get it and it's plot, it's like, okay, tell me about the plot of the story. And then doing the book is where they actually interpret and recreate a drama of the story. Again, that will really show you if they've comprehended the book. Just a couple of definitions around that you'll often see and are a little bit confusing under comprehension is close reading is when a student reads the text very closely for all kinds of clues. So symbolism, cool words, different literary devices. Close with a Z reading is where you actually delete words from a written passage and the students have to fill it in those blanks using knowledge of language and context. So you'll see those like worksheet pages where there's blanks. That's close reading, but close reading is when the students have to read it closely. So I think you can probably remember it that way, is they have to read it closely versus close is just kind of strange. So we've taken words out, which is a little bit strange. Okay. Now, here we go. What I have done is I have set up the rest of these slides for you to just read through on your own. So versus me just blathering through, I've set them up so you can just kind of read through. I do want to just give you the introduction of what this whole reading strategy is. Basically what it is it's going from high teacher support, where the teacher is very much in control and focusing the student, all the way to, whoa, that is not what I wanted to do. Come back here. There we go. Is all the way down to low teacher support, which is ultimately where we want to get all of our kids, is where they can read independently. That's sort of the ultimate goal, right? Is for them to read independently. So that's the structure. And as it goes here, it lessens in teacher support. So modeled instruction is explicit demonstration of a particular skill that uses the think aloud strategy. And the think aloud strategy is literally the teacher saying what the teacher is thinking around that particular reading strategy. Obviously, the teacher knows how to read, so you're making it up a little bit, but you are actually expressing so that the student can actually hear different strategies of how to attack reading, basically. And I'm just going to read this definition. Think alouds make the internal processes of reading visible as the teacher uses prompts and questions to share their thought processes with the students. Okay. Then it goes down into shared instruction, which is the teacher does most of the tasks, but the students are starting to assist. And then we get into guided instructions, where the students actually do a task on their own while the teacher scaffolds and coaches. And then ultimately, independent practice. This is where students are applying all their skills they've learned and apply them on their own. So what I would suggest is you go through the rest of these slides. I have some links to videos so you can see actual teachers and students going through this strategy. So have a go with the rest of the slides on your own, and I'm going to do lots of examples of these when we're in class together. So if there's something that you're like, I don't actually understand this, then we can clarify that in class. But I want you to have a bit of a sense of the structure, so that when I do the examples, you'll know what's going on. All right, good work. Take care, everybody.